Awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are going to just give a couple of minutes here for people to enter the room. Welcome to the American Marketing Association kickoff event of the season, Festivals Forever. Thanks so much for being here. We know we have a lot of registrants today, which is fantastic. So we're just going to kind of give it about 30 seconds to allow people to enter our virtual gathering place. And happy Wednesday. Still so hot. Welcome, everyone. All right, I think I'm going to just sort of get started with a little bit of preamble here and then hand it off to my colleagues. So while people are getting settled, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Mariska Morse. I am the president of the American Marketing Association New Orleans chapter, and just thrilled to have this amazing panel to help us kick off our 21-22 AMA NOLA season. So it's an event, or the Festivals Forever was an idea that we had last spring as all of the festivals were gearing up for a big fall comeback. We were so excited to have this in August and ask, the CMOs, the marketing leaders of our favorite festivals to participate and kind of talk about how they've been navigating change. And what we didn't know at the time is that they would be navigating even more change than we were originally considering back in the spring. So we're just thrilled that they, despite sort of everything that they've been juggling, that this group is here with us today. And of course, Mark Romick, who's such a pro and joined us last year for our season opener, and we're so happy to have him back. But I actually am going to be handing the mic over here to my colleagues, because if you can tell, I'm sitting in a car wearing a University of Michigan hat, because right now my daughter has just met her roommate. She's going to be starting at the University of Michigan today. And today is move-in day. You don't get to sort of choose when your daughter moves into the dorm. It's just sort of an assigned time. So I'm going to be handing things over because I have to run back to meet the roommate parents and then move my daughter into the dorm room. But as I was thinking about sort of this season kickoff today, I thought, oh my goodness, this in of itself, the fact that I'm wearing this hat and the thousands of people walking around Ann Arbor right now are wearing all of their Michigan gear, is a whole other branding conversation we should have about sort of higher ed and all of the money that goes into sort of branding and that sort of lived experience of these university brands. So that might be a topic for down the road. And if you are a Go Blue fan, put it in the chat, and my colleagues will tell me later how many people that are online today are University of Michigan fans. But like I said, I'm just wanting to jump on, welcome everyone. Thank you for participating in our big season opener. I hope that we will see you for every event that we're having this year. We're really trying to sort of build up the AMA NOLA chapter as the go-to resource for professionals across the city, whether you're in marketing or not, because we know that marketing touches just about every function in an organization. So it's fantastic. Next time, bring a friend. We're happy to have you. And Will and Mike and Robert, I'm going to hand it over to you to do the intro slides. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mariska. Real quick, my cameras are acting weird, so if it looks like I got two cameras, I'm dealing with technical issues on my end. But anyway, greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Will Monson. I'm one of the members of the board with the American Marketing Association for New Orleans. And then today, we're here to talk about all things lawn chairs, talk about all things about balancing plates of food onto plastic beer cups, and talk about dancing while listening to Flow Tribe. Because today we're going to be talking about the very thing you've been craving for over a year and a half, festivals. So, and like I said, we're just super excited to be back from especially our break with AMA. We've had an amazing year last year with a lot of virtual events where we talked to marketing experts on different topics ranging from social media influencers to diversity in marketing. But today we want to continue that with, as Mariska said, festival marketing. So some of the things we're going to be discussing today is looking at like how festivals had to adapt and cope over the last year and a half. And our panelists are going to explore these topics around how the landscapes changed, tactics that they used to promote their different festivals, and also how to handle when sometimes the universe throws a curveball as it did this year again on us. So, and just to kind of give you all a quick overview, if you have any questions throughout any point of this, feel free to use the Q&A box. Our moderators, myself, Mike included, Robert, are going to be taking a look at that and then feeding them to the panelists as we go along. And also, any AMA member, you're going to receive a recording of this webinar today via your email. So keep an eye on that after the presentation so you can go back and listen to anything you might have missed. And want to quickly go over some of our future events as well. We have, as we've done last year and we're continuing to doing it, monthly marketing meetups. The first one coming up on the 15th at noon. It's a nice little quick 60-minute conversation where you can come in and topics range anything. We talked about TikTok one week, and it's just a space for you to kind of meet colleagues in the field, bounce ideas off of, talk to, and just simply to network and have those nerdy marketing conversations that sometimes your coworkers don't want to engage with you in. Also, we got coming up to leading in a social world. Our next panel where we're going to look into, webinar, but it's where we're going to look at social media through the lens of leadership in itself too. What can it bring to their job, their career? How do they can build up that social capital by using social media? And that's going to be on September 29th at noon as well. Also, here's our pitch too on joining AMA. So AMA, as many of you are already aware, and hopefully most of you are members, but if not, AMA NOLA is the local chapter where we do these kind of things, where we work with our talented individuals within New Orleans, within the city, to talk all things marketing. When you join up with AMA, you get access to all these meetups, you get access to these panels, these workshops, and also you get access to AMA's national website, which has thousands upon thousands of useful tools. There's pre-made templates. There's more educational opportunities within there to kind of walk through, and also just discounts on things that help you out as business owners as well. Stuff like UPS shipping, office supplies, and the like. Feel free to check out AMA's website to kind of learn more what the organization from a national standpoint can do, or check out AMA NOLA's website and to learn more about what we do here locally. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier is the membership perks every week, just to kind of let y'all know there's things, it's very similar to kind of like lynda.com and all that, where they get national experts that kind of come in and conduct online trainings. They're absolutely wonderful. Topics range across the spectrum, and we highly recommend checking them out and taking full advantage of this. Lastly, I also want to point out that we're on social media, so feel free to follow us. We do a lot of promotion on our activities and our events. But in addition, we also have great content written by local experts as well on our website that we feature heavily across all of our social media. That being said, let's get into festivals forever and how CMOs are navigating the change. And to start things off with, I like to introduce our moderator today. If you've never been to a Saints game, you've probably never heard his voice, but if you have, you know exactly who I'm talking about. I'd like to introduce Mark Romick today, the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer for New Orleans & Company. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Will. Hey, everybody. It's good to see everybody as part of this important dialogue today. And truly to echo what Mariska said, we have the all-star lineup to share with you what is happening currently with festivals and where we're going to go with festivals. And as I say that, I want to catch myself saying we really don't really know where we're going to go at this point. We're still fighting the Delta variant, and hopefully everybody is staying safe and doing the right thing to protect themselves and their families. But the shows must go on, as we like to say, and New Orleans, better than any other city, will manage through this and be even more successful. Just sort of to set the environment, festivals are really the lifeblood of the New Orleans economy as it relates to tourism and hospitality. You'll get a different count whoever you talk to, but there are well over 130 plus permitted festivals, and likely there are some many unpermitted festivals that still occur that will grow into permitted festivals at some point. But in any case, they're so important to our culture bearers. They're important to our neighborhoods. They're important to getting not only our locals out and enjoying the activities, but also to bring visitors in, not only from the region, but also from the nation and throughout the world. So if you go back to 2019, New Orleans had close to 19 million visitors. The festivals made a huge piece of that. Visitors spent over $10 billion in direct dollar spending. That's not economic impact. That's direct spending on not only hotels, restaurants, and the food and retail, but also the travel to and from the city. So this is so important to all of us, and I can't think of a better panel to discuss their experiences than who we have with us today. So let's bring up our panelists, and I'm going to give a brief introduction on each, and then we'll start with our first question. We have Amy Boyle Collins with us today. She's Chief Executive Officer for Gamble Communications. She's a Loyola grad. She got her master's in communication as well from LSU. Most importantly, as it relates to festivals, she and her husband, Sherwood Collins, created the Beignet Fest back in 2016. And it was really in their way to bring awareness and funding for programs that serve children with developmental differences in the greater New Orleans area. Her son is her biggest fan, and she is her son's biggest fan. And it was around wanting to help him and also other parents and children in the area. She's well regarded in the public relations and event community. Some of you may know her back when she ran the YLC. She actually created what we all enjoy so much, and that is Wednesday at the Square, those concert series that have been an annual rite. We hope to see those back again soon. She's been involved in many things, including Super Bowls, the New Orleans brass hockey team, LSU athletics, and she's had professional work with agencies such as J. Walter Thompson Worldwide, Logan Marketing, Devaney Communications, and PRPR. We also have with us Becker Hall. Becker is the co-founder and chief executive officer for Hogs for the Cause. That organization is unique, and it's the largest one of its kind in the nation, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. They are the premier funding source for pediatric brain cancer outreach services in our country. That began back in 2008 and has grown into one of the largest barbecue and music festivals in our nation. He likes to tell the story that it started with 1 pig and 200 patrons, and now it's grown over to 100 barbecue teams with 30,000 patrons and millions raised for the cause. As some of you know, their funding went to help build a Hogs House at Children's Hospital, the Celebration Bell at Children's Hospital of Atlanta, and they recently committed to building another multi-million-dollar Hogs House on the campus of our New Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital in Baton Rouge. He's also a vintner. He is the founder of Bouquenet Wines, which are found not only in Louisiana as the fastest growing wine in Louisiana, but he's also selling in Alabama, South Carolina, and portions of the proceeds go, of course, to his favorite cause, Hogs for the Cause. He's a graduate of the University of South Carolina, and he got his MBA from my alma mater, University of New Orleans. Final panelist, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think he needs much of an introduction because he is in the middle of something that we all love so much, and that is the Jazz and Heritage Festival. Matt Goldman, he is the press and advertising director for the festival, which is presented by Shell. Since 1992, he has been leading the efforts in the press and advertising department for the festival. And obviously, we thought we would see his face a lot more this fall, but once again, they took a leadership role and a responsibility, and we'll be back with them in the spring. But Matthew's had a touch on so many things that have happened in New Orleans. He's produced events for the Super Bowl, the National Basketball Association's All-Star Weekend, a portion of President Bill Clinton's inauguration celebration. He served as sponsorship activation director for the Essence Music Festival, which, as we know, is the largest African-American music and arts event in the U.S. And he was part of the organizing committee for the U.S. Track and Field Olympic Trials, which occurred several years ago back at City Park at Tad Gormley Stadium. Tulane grad, Tulane brought him to New Orleans, and he has never left. So as you can see, we are ready to go. And I'd like to go ahead and start with a question across the board for everyone to respond to. And we'll begin with Amy, go to Becker, and then and Matthew. And that is, let's take a step back before COVID, 18 months ago. What way did marketing contribute to the success of your festival? As an audience driver, was it weighted on the earned media side? Was paid important, the paid media side, or getting people to have that on-site experience and become ambassadors for your festival? So Amy, why don't you start us off and take us back a little bit into your history?
Sure. As you might guess, running a public relations firm, I'd say that public relations has really driven our marketing strategy, both in terms of online PR with social media, as well as working with local media, regional media. We were lucky enough for Travel and Leisure to name us a top fall festival after our second year. And so we've leveraged a lot of that publicity, as well as community outreach. Being a nonprofit festival, a nonprofit, having a charitable cause, it helps tremendously to be able to leverage media relations and use social media through sort of a public relations lens to drive our marketing. So that's what we really hung our hat on as we've built the brand and built awareness for our charitable mission.
Thanks, Amy. Becker?
Yeah, I would say that ours is more of a mix. We try very strategically to use leverage where at all possible. As many people who have gone to Hogs for the Cause, we have about 100 teams out there. And those teams are not only raising money for our mission, but they serve as their own little marketing hubs as well. So we still very much believe, or I believe, I know that my head of marketing is on this call and we battle about a lot of these constantly, but I do find that WOM, the word of mouth marketing, is still the most effective form of marketing to get people to come to your event, or really to get them into products or whatever you're trying to sell. And we have teams that have about 30 to 70 people in each one. And we try to bring in very different demographic backgrounds on those teams so we can reach as many as people as possible via that channel and via that leverage. But of course, we do take advantage of, owned and earned, and absolutely still do have paid media as well. We do kind of focus more now where we've transitioned away from traditional to digital. But, and if it were up to me, I'd probably be 100% digital, as I think the 7 touches of marketing are a little bit antiquated personally. But for me, it's always, what is going to be the best lever to get these people into our event? From there, we're going to focus on experience, because I do think that the experience you give those customers that come in your gates is the best form of marketing in the end, because that's when they're going to go tell their friends, you got to come out here next year. You don't want to miss this. So leverage and experience.
You made a point. If you've got 100 teams and you say an average of 40 or so per team, that's 4,000 opportunities and 4,000 different channels that are going out there as ambassadors for your brand. And I'm sure
absolutely correct.
Amy's got the same happiness going there.
We're very thankful for them. They're incredible people.
Yeah. Matthew.
Well, like Mark, like you said, taking that page, the ambassadors for our brand, I think that's how Jazz Fest has really grown. People, starting in 1970, we've had 50 years to grow, and it's really been word of mouth. And people that have come to New Orleans is experiential. It's an experience. You come to New Orleans, you don't know the food, you don't know the music, you don't know the culture. As we all say, it's like being in Europe, in a foreign country when you come down here. So people that gravitate to that and experience it are what really works. So word of mouth, and we can advertise all we want, but when your best friend says, I was in New Orleans for Hogs for the Cause or for the Beignet Festival, for Jazz Fest, that's the best thing you can do. You talk about it, it's from the heart, experiential, what you did. They don't even know the first time when they come. And, a lot of times our audience is so unique because it's not just a New Orleans or, 200 miles out. We have 8% of Jazz Fest is international. So we have people from all over the country coming. So advertising could never touch everybody, but word of mouth can, and experiences. And we have such a loyal audience that's been coming for 10 and 20 and 30 years. People that grow up in New Orleans, leave, come back to New Orleans, whether it be for Mardi Gras, whether it be for Jazz Fest. But those are the things, you can't get those things anywhere else in the world. So that's where, and when they're not here and at the University of Michigan talking about things, Mariska's going to be talking about Jazz Fest, be talking about Mardi Gras, maybe Hogs, those are the things that everybody's an ambassador for New Orleans. I always like to say, we love us some us. We love telling people how great New Orleans is. And when they come, it shows off. We're never disappointed. So I definitely think word of mouth, we don't spend $1 when the Jazz Fest schedule comes out to maybe a little digital. I shouldn't say that, but we don't really spend much money because all the public relations, all the media that's been coming for years and years, decades, the media and the people, they're the mouth that we need and they get it out there. And then we need to change the message a little bit, what we're trying to promote specifically, but certainly word of mouth more than advertising when it first rolls out.
Very good. Thank you. Well, let's go ahead and now get into present day. Now, COVID halted product delivery, at least for Amy and Matthew. I know, Becker, we're going to speak to you and how the 2021 Fest, your experience and what happened there. But in what ways did you keep your brand alive in the midst of having to make the announcement that we've postponed or canceled and we're going to look to another date? Because there's a lot of brand love for New Orleans out there. And specifically for each of your individual festivals. So, Amy, how did you do that? What were the goals that maybe changed, and how did you go about making sure people know that you were still around?
So when we decided to cancel, we made a strategic decision to go right out with a call to action that would still allow people to enjoy the attributes of festing. So, of course, WWOZ came out with the whole festing in place concept when Jazz Fest was canceled the first year. So we just picked up on that, and we want to push business to our food vendors who've been so loyal to us. And so we will have a sort of a festing in place call to action. And then we also want to continue to fundraise for our mission. So what we've done is we've asked people to consider donating what they would have paid to get into the festival online on our website to support our charitable mission, because we still want to make grants this year, even though we're not having a festival. We've been very proud to make grants every year, even last year when we didn't have a festival. And so those are the two calls to action that we put out when we canceled, and we continue to put that out. And we want to build on that using mostly social media. We'll have some TV and other media appearances to build that message as we get closer to September 25th this year, which would have been the Saturday that we would have gathered at City Park. We did much the same thing last year when we canceled, and we had a summertime Fest in Place effort. It actually was very popular, and I think it'll be even more popular this year because I think people feel a little more like they know their boundaries. Last summer, there was a lot of uncertainty about could you go, where could you go, mask, no mask. And this year, I feel like we're sort of, it's like that second kid scenario. We've kind of been through it once. So I think everybody feels a little more comfortable. So we're hoping to drive business to our food vendors who would have been with us at City Park. And we're hoping to collect some of those donations that people would have bought tickets otherwise.
Thank you, Amy. We'll look for that messaging. Before we go to Becker, Matthew, I know you've seen this show before, as they say. Take us through your thinking over the period of COVID and, of course, the most recent announcement.
Yeah, we had the wave where it started in March and Jazz Fest being in April. So we called off Jazz Fest, and we knew the festival dates were going to be something that people were looking for. Thankfully, we have an audience that is, looking for information and circulating information and love and support for everything and the musicians. So, we've got such a big audience. we knew they wanted something during the festival. And we didn't know what exactly we would do it during those April dates in May. So I called up OZ and we had a discussion what made sense. And that's where we came up with festing in place and being able to, at one point we talked about video and how do we do this? It gets into financial elements and playing music and just challenges that you didn't want to bite off. So having WWOZ as a broadcast partner of ours, part of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, it was a natural to work with them, all the artists, and they broadcast already. So that festing in place was obviously a huge success, emotionally more than anything. And that helped the brand. There's people that would never have come to Jazz Fest that year, but they listened on WWOZ, wherever they happened to be. So in some ways it spread that brand. Going back to Katrina, that was a huge year that our Jazz Fest name spread. When we came back after Katrina, it spread the brand internationally. A little bit with festing in place, OZ helped do that again, where that brand went out. And then we had that downtime and looking forward and being optimistic that we would have a Jazz Fest again. And then we announced a festival, obviously. And then again, people were excited. It was going to be, we knew there was a challenge. We didn't know it was going to be a guarantee, but again, the people were tugging for information. We can just put out some and it just spreads. So it's a fortunate audience that we have that can help get that message out. A festival like ours, when we announce that we're going to have dates, it gets picked up internationally by media and the fans push it out there. So we were very fortunate to get a wave up for a while until unfortunately came crashing down again. And it is really, again, just the support over 50 years of people that are so loyal to New Orleans, to the festival, to the musicians. I mean, we're all in the music, we're hiring a lot of people that are musical, whether it be backstage, front of house, on stage, people that support, food vendors. We all have, so much good comes out of this, and it touches on so many people that it has a huge audience and that ripples. So the brand, it doesn't get damaged necessarily in this for Jazz Fest. It's, people understand, I think, amazingly, social media is out there. You're always going to get a certain element of people that are unhappy with whatever you do. But when the festival announced our postponement again, or the cancellation to April, it was literally 99 out of 100. Smart, you did the right thing. Well, okay, we'll look for April. Oh, that's a shame. What about? So it was amazing how supportive everybody was. And that just really doesn't happen too often in social media world and just in the world in general. But I think we understood it. We're all here. People are disappointed. And now we look to April and, doing it again, but and the wave will crest again and we'll get back up there. But right now there's a downtime. But people are certainly, when the October time comes around again, I don't think they've announced it, but WWZ most likely going to do another festing in place. And the concerts at night all around town, a lot of those will still be going on. So I still think you'll have a good feeling of New Orleans. You probably won't have the visitors, but you'll have, again, another highlight, another time where, Jazz Fest is topical and people are celebrating it and getting ready for, celebrate what didn't happen, but certainly whatever, we make the best of it, as you said earlier, Mark, in New Orleans.
Thank you, Matthew. Certainly, when we went into the lockdown phase back in March of 2020, our social media had to go into overdrive to keep up with the conversations that were occurring. And we found that with so much brand love about the city around the world, and we were getting almost like get well messages from everyone, making sure that New Orleans was going to be okay, that the festivals would come back, and that I would be able to visit again at some point in time. And that hasn't ended. And I think the fact that each of you continue your presence on social media, sharing the culture, sharing what you're doing, and allowing people to kind of participate, even though they may be miles away, is going to be important for us to continue what's so necessary for our economy. And I don't mean to make this all about the business, but it is important for us because it is the livelihood of so many people. Becca, you found a way this past year to make some lemonade out of lemons. Walk us through your process and tell us what your expectations were and what they came out to be.
Yeah, so, when we originally canceled in 2020, we were 2 weeks out to our event. So that was a really difficult time. Our teams, our bands, our event, every staff was hired and ready to go. We were the first festival. Actually, I believe Buku was the next weekend. So they were really the first festival that was canceled. and we were the second one. And in that mindset, selfishly, we were thinking, oh my gosh, 2 weeks from now, this is all going to be over, because we were all supposed to, stay in for 2 weeks, and then everybody's going to go off and have this amazing, even better festival season. And we're going to be, in financial peril, because, as everybody on this panel can tell you, a lot of your costs are already built in when you're 2 weeks out to an event. So that was a really difficult time for us. And it was really difficult because our teams are fundraising and planning for this event about 9 months out of the year. And to remove that from them at the last moment kind of was like Charlie Brown in the field goal. It was taking the football away before he tries to kick it every time. So, not getting that climax for all the effort it's really difficult on a financial and emotional level. And, as I talk to our teams being our biggest asset, they are volunteers. And if we aren't able to keep them engaged in our brand and in the concept of the festival, then we really can't put on a successful festival. So in 2021, or towards the back of 2020, we really had to have one of those, let's get real with who we are and what Hogs is. One, we're not an iconic institution that everybody's just going to flock to once everything comes back to normal. We were in survival mode. So we were very much aware that 2 years without an event, and we may lose these teams as they just kind of out of sight, out of mind. Life goes on. 2 years is a lot of time. So we made that decision in October or September. We put together about a five option plan and just got extremely close with, I joke about this because my background's in finance and, in the stock market and with analysts and whatnot. And there were a lot of analysts that really got heavily involved in tracking COVID and what it was. So we were using those relationships on the financial markets and those who were tracking COVID to kind of dictate where we thought the virus is going to end up and how it would trend. And how can we use that information to put us in the best position possible to get into a place where we might be able to put on an event. The state of Louisiana, and talking also, it was talking with leaders and always being in touch with our leaders. Mark, I would be hounding you all the time. What's the latest information? What can you tell me? I felt like I was back on those days, just spreading information, not about financials, but about this virus and what that means for our city and what does that mean for festivals. And it was just keeping in the know and seeing when there might be an opportunity. And if there was an opportunity, you got to strike. Now that meant to us that we were very fearful that we looked at the level, and that weekend that we chose, that June 6th weekend, was our last weekend. We weren't considering the fall for our own reasons, and the other weeks had passed, but we landed about 90 days out, and we said we're going for June 6th. We knew that it was summer, but based on the diligence that we had done with our teams and with our patrons, we knew the demand was there. We had made the decision 3 months in advance that we were going to do a limited event at a higher price. No matter even if what the COVID restrictions were, we wanted to make the event as safe as possible and give people just a very unique festival experience and feel like more catered to their needs type festival. And when we put those tickets on sale at about a 3x price than we're normal for a GA for us, we were expecting a lot of kind of negative feedback and maybe slower sales. And we received zero negative feedback, nothing but positive feedback, and had our best on day we ever had. So we ended up selling out both days and knew that the demand was there. At that point, everybody had been kept in for so long that that bottleneck was ready to explode. And we wanted to lead out. We wanted to be the first one, not only to take advantage of that demand, but also we wanted to be an example, hopefully, and unfortunately it's not the case, for the fall festivals. And that was part of our argument with the state, was somebody's got to lead out here so that we could get these processes and systems and processes right for in the fall when we have all these bigger fests going back to back to back to back. And it just happened that we were able to put on the festival really at the nadir of where the virus was at the time, and really didn't have that many concerns. The one thing you can't really prepare for in festival life, which we could do a whole nother panel on, is Mother Nature. And we did get some, it is hogs, so we did get a little bit of weather, but it was an amazing experience. We received no backlash, and we were able to survive. And our teams that I say are our levers and really our ambassadors, they knew that we did everything we could to put this on for them and give our patrons the experience that we knew they wanted. And it was basically our idea at the time was, we're going to fight tooth and nail to get this thing off, whatever the cost. And if we don't, we're going to really have to reevaluate what the organization may be going forward. So it was a lot of planning, a lot of just kind of gauging the market and gauging the virus and working to time that perfectly. Which
you certainly found the window and took advantage of it. And I know the parish government helped you, was a great.
Yeah, the city, the parishes, the state, they were excellent. But we were also fortunate that because that there hadn't been festivals in the country, as a lot of people will know, equipment moves around the country, laborers move around the country. Everybody was in place, so we were able to turn it on pretty quickly. So we were able to park all our stages on site months in advance because they weren't going anywhere else. Sometimes in a normal festival, you have these very finite windows to get all these equipments and people's in. We were fortunate that we had a little bit more liberty there. So we knew that we had those variables in place to turn it on pretty quickly.
Thank you. Let's talk specific to the marketing budget at each of your festivals. Prioritize for us, for the audience, and you've touched on this before, and we've heard digital as a nice play. How would you say that pie chart looks like going forward for the future, for the next time you do the festival? How much will be earned? How much of it will be paid, digital, et cetera? Let's go, Matt, why don't you start?
Ours is unique. I mean, it's hard to advertise to people in Europe and Japan and New York and Chicago and LA, but we do it. There's the value there, and certainly digital is the way to do it. Sometimes, Becker, you said some of those traditional radio doesn't work. You'd love to go all digital. We still have dramatic value locally in radio, cable TV, network TV, not as much. But we have a different audience. We have different audiences, period. People think, oh, Jazz Fest, people either go or they don't, which might make sense in New York or, nationally. But in New Orleans, when people are within 30 miles of New Orleans, you think it's Jazz Fest, but who's playing? So we never actually take an ad out that just says Jazz Fest, April 23rd through May 2nd. That's it. We never do that. We always take an ad out that says Jazz Fest, April 23rd through May 2nd with Bruce Springsteen and Stevie Wonder. And we always put names of talent in there because we fight the name of jazz. If you don't know the festival, you're like, oh, I don't like jazz. You're like, well, Bruce Springsteen is there and Stevie Wonder. All of a sudden it says more. We still have to, to take it locally when we have a Katy Perry, when we have some local artist, pop artists that aren't usually a country name, maybe, that there's an audience there that's not used to going to Jazz Fest. But if they heard the Katy Perry going or Meghan Trainor or, whoever it might be in the pop side, that's pop radio, that's targeting on social media, that's certain programming. So we've got to reach that audience. We don't send them classic rock lineups on pop radio. We focus on who that talent is on certain genres. Same thing on country. If we have a big country name, that audience isn't in tune with 50 years ago in a Jazz Fest. But if they see it's Brad Paisley or Tim McGraw or some of the names we've had through the years, that's all they want. They don't want to read through 18 names of whatever else to get to that Keith Urban name. So we really use it as specific. We segment the audience of exactly who it's going to be in age and demo and location. And we literally figure out we have to run a radio station promotion on a pop radio station in Mobile and Lafayette and Baton Rouge to do that. Big rock and roll stations. We do some flyaway trips in New York and Atlanta. So there's value. Cable TV is still efficient for us. There's a way to, not everybody has a TV spot. So we really evaluate what the medium, what that message, if it's a TV spot, it's not the best way for us to promote who's playing Jazz Fest. A radio spot is better because we know what genre of music they're listening to, so we could target it more. But a 30-second TV spot, our names go right by, is really hard. So we look at that social media, also we can target that audience. So there's not one way, there's no trend in a sense. Social media for years, 5-10 years ago, if you weren't on Facebook, you couldn't reach anybody was the logic. But we still we do surveys every year at Jazz Fest and have done it for past 35 years. And radio is still the #1 way, AM, FM radio in New Orleans, that people find out about who's playing Jazz Fest, which just blows my mind to think that, people are listening to AM, FM radio all the time, and then you get to streaming. Well, people have Spotify or, whatever the streaming services they may have, but we all pay not to get commercials. So then he's like, okay, well, I can't get you on radio, music. So you really start to figure out, how do I reach these people? Billboards, really important for us. And that's going to be specific photos and names of people that are playing, not just Jazz Fest again. So it really is something that we use a lot of thought. We go out in the region in the South. Obviously, a lot of people come from drive-in markets, but a majority of our audience are outside New Orleans.
Yeah, and then of course you do the most important thing at the end of anything. You go back and evaluate, do your research, and start all over again.
And we know with the surveys that we do every year, we know who these people are. It hasn't changed dramatically. It's just what has changed is how's the best way to reach them.
Got it. Amy?
I mean, we're so grassroots. We're in our infancy. I mean, we talk about all the time, the leadership that, we never quite got out of startup mode. At the end of year 4, which was 2019, we went and did a 5-year strategic plan. And part of that plan was, diversifying our income streams beyond just the festival itself as a foundation. Little did we know how dramatically important that would be these last 2 years. And so for us, we're always talking to 2 audiences. We're talking to a festival audience, and we're talking to a mission-driven donor audience. We spend very little money, pennies, on paid media. Most of what we are doing is what Matthew and Becker said before: word of mouth, leveraging humans to tell the story, ambassadors. Social media, we depend mostly on organic. Obviously, Facebook has almost demanded money now. So we do some ad campaigns on Facebook, but we're still getting a lot of organic traction on Instagram. Our board members, as a nonprofit, Becker has teams. We have board members who are very active and talk about the festival and ask for donations and get people to come. Our sponsors, that's one thing. We work through our sponsors to leverage their platforms on social media. So Abita Beer, LCMC, French Market Coffee, we work with their digital teams of their corporate sponsors. And that's something I really learned in college athletics, is that you have to build. I mean, I'm sure Matthew does it with Shell, you build on your corporate brands that work with you and that alignment. And so we use a lot of grassroots techniques to build our brand, build awareness, and tell our story. And I think it's really paid off. Of course, the morning shows here in New Orleans are great. We know geographically too, we have the local audience. We have a drive-in audience that's sort of Baton Rouge, Lafayette, North Shore, Mobile, Gulf Coast. And then we have a fly-in market. And actually, this comes from the great information that you've provided us, Mark, through New Orleans and Company. We know Dallas and Atlanta are great fly-in markets for us. And so we use a lot of digital to get to those folks. And when I say digital, what I really mean is social media. We're not doing a ton of display or any of that. We do work locally with NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune as a media partner, as well as WWL TV. And again, working with those sponsors and those corporate partners really helps us extend what we otherwise would probably have to actually pay for.
Got it. We laugh around the office here that one of the highest performing visuals that we can put out on our social media is a plate of beignets. So you've got a lot going for you. We get a lot of positive comments anytime we put beignets out there. And Becca, we talked a little bit about your barbecue, your teams helping you, and I'm sure digital, as you said, is your favorite. How would you rank that?
Yeah, I think that I'll start kind of by, last year's event. And, speaking of festivals, and one that I've kind of modeled our festival off of and got a little bit closer in that vein this year is one that I really admire is Newport Folk Festival. And one of the biggest marketing advantages you could ever have is scarcity. So when we had a limited crowd, it was amazing how quickly tickets sold when you know that there's actually a limit to how many are sold. That's an interesting model if I were advising somebody who was interested in festivals to maybe think about really hard. But traditionally, we do a good bit of paid media, and there is a little bit of traditional, not as much. We probably skew about 30% traditional and 70% more the digital. And that digital is where you really got to kind of hone in. And to Matthew's point about taking surveys, is those are extremely important. Once you know who your core demographic is and where who your people are and who your customers are, then you could really target them. You can build that avatar, and then what voice to use on which medium. Who we are on Facebook is very different from who we are on Instagram, based on the information of who we know is at our festival. So we speak to those groups very differently. And that is kind of, rule number one, know your customer. And I do think, the surveys are helpful. They're very helpful, but you got to know your customer at your event, because a lot of times in today's age, depending on your age, you don't fill out surveys. So you get a very skewed response on that, because there may be a demographic that does like to fill out surveys, and some that'll just blow that off completely.
That's why we do the survey at the festival.
That's right.
We walk up to you.
You have to do it on site if you can afford it. There's a program at UNO that does some stuff like that, but it's not a cheap service. We've actually never done it. We just put people out there and we take a ton of pictures, ask a lot of questions. We have interns going around the yard and capturing all kinds of information for us. And again, that allows us to build the campaign for the next year.
Yeah, you mentioned that the hotel, restaurant, and tourism program at UNO, which I'm a graduate of my
right.
Dr. Marcus Schuchert is the head of that. He's actually on the call, and again, it's a great program, and I'm sure that they have talent out there that can be of assistance.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's and it's very delineated.
Lightning round, real quick. If someone came up to you and make your answers brief as much as you can, but it'd be interesting to get your advice. Someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I have an idea for a festival, and I'd like to start a festival." What would you tell that person? What's the most important thing, or a couple of things you would tell that person? Becca, you were speaking last. Let's go with you first. Run away.
Yeah, it would be get your balance sheet in order. Make sure you got the funding.
Okay.
You're probably going to lose a lot. So.
And a good insurance person, perhaps.
Yeah. What's your mission? What are you trying to accomplish by doing this festival? That would be my first question.
Yeah, you mentioned something very important, and that's the cause marketing aspect of this. Thank you for that. Matthew, what would you tell that?
I think in New Orleans specifically, you have to find that hole, that donut hole. We've got to, we celebrate everything. So you don't want to do the Manille Festival was original. The Fried Chicken Festival recently was original. There's some great ideas. You just have to have a great idea to start. If you don't have a good idea to start, all the funding in the world may not make it work, but have a good idea. And then, that's step one. And there's 100 steps before you get to show day.
There's got to be a vegetable out there that needs a festival. Amy, what would you say?
I think the key ingredients to success for a startup are experience, having done it before in another space, and connections, because you got to go raise the money for the first year without a product. At least that's what we were able to do.
Amy, Renee and I just read a book online, How to Start a Festival. Boom, did it. Zero experience. So I don't know about that. Just want to do it. Also, having a passion for it. It works too.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder than people think, I would say. People see the fun, they see the show, but obviously Matthew and Becker will back me up. There's a ton of sleepless hours on the back end to make it what it is.
And you're still smiling. We have a question in the chat. What are your thoughts on your vendors doing interactive posts on social media sponsored by you and encouraging donations to the cause that you're representing? Any experience in that or any opinion on that? Let's start with you, Amy.
I think our food vendors, they're some of our biggest ambassadors, especially folks like Loretta, who's known for her beignets, and some of our grassroots catering food vendors who don't necessarily have storefronts. Certainly, we've been able to leverage larger brands like Ruby Slipper, who now have beignets on their menu because of a sort of helping, or a personal ask of wanting to help us out. They're in the pancake and eggs business traditionally. So we love it. We love when our food vendors advocate for us. So, on this coming Fest in Play, September 25th, Loretta's going to do a raffle, and Luca Eats, who has the Oreo beignets, they've attributed a lot of their business increase to being at Beignet Fest, and they're doing $1 from every dish. So it works great.
Are you giving them specific messages that you would like to see them incorporate in their posts, or providing them some scripting?
Sherwood is in contact with them constantly. My husband, who runs the festival, I'm just the mouthpiece. And so he's in contact with them. I wouldn't say it's a content calendar, it's not a very manufactured thing, but we certainly, as all brand advocates, want to make sure we have consistent messaging and those sorts of things. And so just constant cooperation, conversation around what they can do. A lot of the food vendors we work with a few exceptions, are mom and pop businesses. So we're able to really help each other,
Thank you. Matthew?
We've got a few it's a little different for our perspective, but with the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation being a nonprofit and have programs throughout the year, our vendors have been out there, food vendors specifically, and a lot of the crafts, they're participants. They're part of the festival at this point. They're not just someone who comes in and has a booth. They've been out there 20, 30, 40 years. So they've always been part of our branding and part of the ambassadors of come see me at my booth, or the reunion of going to the crawfish bread and seeing John Ed Laborde every year and getting a crawfish bread with your friends and see, whoever it might be that your food vendor is. So we don't really, we help promote them through Festing in Place and make sure they had a seat at the table. And we help promote that. Same with the crafts vendors. We don't do a lot on social just because of, we encourage them to do anything they can, certainly, to get the brand out there, to just keep it alive, and let them use their own voice.
Good, thanks. Becker, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier. Obviously, our teams are our biggest ambassadors, and they've kind of created their own brands. Some of them are even, a lot of them are incorporated. So the more they do, the merrier. They get the word out there to their audiences.
Okay. I'd like anyone to answer this one. It's an important question that came across. What internal structures have you put in place over the past year or two to support your teams, seasonal staff, the gig workers, who are among those that suffered the most as non-employees during this crisis? Anyone want to add to that?
I could just mention that the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation has a music relief fund they've started right away. They've raised, I believe, over $1 million, distribute a lot of it. So they have a non-profit, even within the best days, they're doing a lot of programming that helps people that aren't as fortunate, even when festivals and concerts are going. So and that's still going on. So there's been a lot of fundraising around that.
Good. Anyone else want to add? I do have another question in the chat. How has COVID impacted sponsorships for your festival, and how do you see sponsorship activation in the future? Are they knocking at the door? Are you having to go out and convince?
I'm happy to take the lead on this one. One, it's going to depend on, we're 3 very different festivals with very different numbers and very different brands. Sponsorship is extremely important. I mean, let's look what's going on with the Crescent City Classic right now. So, iconic institutions like that, we are extremely dependent upon them. I can say that in 2021, the brands were knocking kind of on our door because they hadn't had that kind of event marketing in years. So we were in a very fortunate spot. But on the flip side of that, what I've kind of seen, and y'all may see this a little bit differently, is that with the kind of the way that digital marketing has kind of exploded and the kind of ROI that you can see instantaneously, brands are a little bit more hesitant to get involved in event sponsorship One, because they can't really measure the ROI, and two, I got to go back to Mother Nature. You see so many rainouts that the brand doesn't get full ROI on that opportunity there. It's immensely important to the festivals, and as what our festival will do when we sit down with our sponsors, the first question we want to ask them is, what are you trying to get out of this? How do you measure your ROI, and how are we going to get you to that? It's really difficult to have, you can't, if you go back to starting a festival and you want to pull in a sponsor, you can't just cash the check. You got to know what exactly they want and what they're trying to do, and you want to keep them happy because you need them to stick with you. So they're extremely important, but you got to know their brand and what they're trying to accomplish.
Very good.
One of the things I've had success with is we really don't sell a relationship based on the day of the event. We sell a relationship based on the whole year. And so we're trying to leverage our digital assets to help those corporate sponsors, reach their communications objectives. We're, doing mutual programming toward our charitable mission, whether that's sensory friendly days, at different children's activities around the city or something like that. So that it's about more than just the day of the festival. We're a one-day festival. So if it rains or we have a weather event or COVID or whatever, there's a lot of risk there. So we have to overcome that by having a whole year of relationship and building on each other. That said, there are still plenty of corporate sponsors that they just want to talk about what their tent's going to look like that day. And, we have to meet them where they are. And if that's what they're interested in, we obviously customize toward what they're looking for. But we really, really focus on having a deeper relationship. And that has come in very handy because there have been corporate sponsorships that have said, you know what, keep the money, we'll come back at it next year. And it's been critical to our success.
Good. All right. And Matthew, we got about a minute left, but you want to knock that one out as well?
Yeah, we've had, you've seen some of the names, everybody's at the festival, the Shell, Miller, Acura, there's a loyalty there. They're part of the festival. They see the value of it greater than just having that one event, that loyalty of bringing clients, bringing friends, bringing staff to the festival, showing them a time that doesn't happen anywhere else. So they're supportive of ours. Then you find people that want to be attached to it. Talking to tourism organizations and things that, we're an economic engine. We're the Super Bowl every year, Jazz Fest, of economic impact in New Orleans. So that's what people want to be associated with that and help drive people back here.
Very good. Well, this has been a packed 1 hour of unbelievable information. And I want to thank Amy, Matthew, and Becker for stepping up and sharing really what has been unprecedented 18 months. We're all looking for the rain to stop in this storm, and it will, and we'll be back to our regular selves. But in the meantime, we have, and I hate the word pivot, so I'm going to use the word, we have changed as we've needed to be better. And with that, we've got the best brains in the marketing business to make that happen. Will, I'm going to turn it back over to you if you have any closing comments.
Thank you all so much. We're so appreciative to have all of you on board to kind of discuss the thing that you find most passionate about, especially with these festivals. I want to thank everybody who joined us today. I hope you've got valuable information that you take back. And as always, please check us out. Find us on social media with AMA New Orleans. Definitely check out, keep an ear out for when we will finally get to eat those beignets, that barbecue, and in here, Jazz again at the fairgrounds. And thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.